Hello, I've been running. And the name Joanne Tull popped into my mind. Who is Joanne Tull?
Joanne Tull is a mother. She's a daughter as well and a granddaughter. Happy to say she's someone's partner. And then, of course, she is a creative and cultural industries consultant. She is above all of that. She's a teacher as well, a mentor at the University of the West Indies in the Department of Creative and Festival Arts, happily teaching her passion.
So you talk about creative arts. What do you mean by that?
Oh, that's so exciting for me because I like to say to people, I can't draw, act, sing, paint, but I fall right in simply because I have chosen to go down the line of capacity building in the area of business of the arts. So, creative arts for me really is about arts administration, arts development, entrepreneurial capacity building, basically the important support base that is necessary for those who have those talents, those tremendous talents, are able to thrive on what they consider to be their craft and their strength.
My observation of Trinidad is that we have a tremendous amount of talent, but those people just don't earn a lot of money.
Yes.
Think about that statement.
It's uneven. There are those who do earn. I won't run away from that. All of us in the Caribbean, we've seen our carnivals, our festivals. We've seen certain showcases of various artists across the region and beyond. From that, we know that revenue is generated. There are some people who do earn, but sadly, we still are not at a place where it's evenly distributed. We don't have that ripple effect as we would desire. In the Caribbean, there is some development work that needs to be done in terms of artist talent and stagecraft. But I think the question you're asking is more about how do we get everybody to be able to earn? It's really a policy issue. We are still not at a place where work in the arts is standardized in terms of what people should earn or what people can earn. It's also that people still at a place where they can't necessarily use their craft to go into the bank, generate some kind of business arrangement, and not just the bank, but financial institutions and financial platforms. We're still not at that place. And so that really requires policy engineering that would help enable the sector to get in that direction. Last but not least, financial literacy still is a challenge, particularly for those who are emerging artists. So, policy can aid with that in terms of setting up certain structures that would allow for that. Place it within the education system, for example, support us at the university to have particular courses that would help those who are interested and in need.
You talked about the policy implementation. Can you
Mhm.
think of a country where that policy makes a difference?
Unfortunately, I'll have to cite developed countries very early on. Canada. There's also Ireland. If you notice, these are places where there are very strong creative industries. We can think of artists from these places, and it's because policy mechanisms were put in place. But more certainly in Asia, Singapore, they have made some strides in terms of being able to allow for their creative industries. I think we know of that in terms of BTS and all of that. So yes, it is possible. There are parts of Africa, most certainly Nigeria. Nollywood is a lot more established. Fashion is a big deal in Africa as well. So there are countries within the African continent who have shown that this is possible and it can be done. And the policy environment does certainly enable to get the results.
What is in my mind is why aren't we able to implement the policies?
I think it's will, it's conviction, it's having the belief. If I take myself, for example, I just made that little joke about not having artistic capacity. I'm from the social sciences. I came into this through international relations. That is my background. It was really doing the work from a trade perspective, working with my senior colleague who was my mentor, Dr. Keith Nurse. As a matter of fact, we're celebrating 25 years next year of our first piece of research in this field, the music industry. And it was clear to us talking to people that will is a problem. I'm saying 25 years ago, and that hasn't changed. Even if you have a one or two persons sitting in a cabinet who think that this is important, even if the prime minister might have been a minister of culture and an artist manager, we don't have that in the region. You still have to get everybody to go along with it. And then the fiscal reality sometimes when they sit there. But if we have to give this the attention it deserves, some of those fiscal realities more challenging than good news, we would really see a difference. We've seen it when we inject into the carnivals. And so we need to also inject into our people.
Absolutely lovely, because there's so many people who are creative, who have cultural
Yeah.
competence, but they just don't earn an income.
Yes.
What we really have to work on.
Yes.
So let's move away from that challenge
Sure.
and talk about the many Caribbean festivals you've studied and what
Yes.
you learned about that impact on our economies.
Oh, wow. The one that we just talked about from a positive standpoint is that it does generate employment. The festival ecosystem is really amazing. It's like a sleeping giant in the Caribbean, in that there's so much potential within it, but we still are wrestling with how we can really squeeze all those opportunities out of it. I'm going to see that from a positive standpoint. That is something to look forward to. There's still much to be done in a very positive and transformative way. One of the things is that because of our culture, our indigenous resources and assets, or heritage, it's something that will never run out. And I think that's a blessing. We have assets and resources that will never die. I hear people debate a lot about oil and gas in Trinidad and Tobago, about when the oil you have to say to those who are listening, we don't have that challenge with the arts and culture. We have an indigenous natural resource that we will always have. I think it's important that we invest in ourselves. Another positive, increasingly, in spite of what we would have started off as a challenge, more and more young persons are coming into the arts and cultures. The university, we would have seen that decline in enrollment on account of COVID mainly. And we are seeing that building back up and young people returning to the classrooms. A lot more of them take it at Cape. I can certainly tell you that. There is that passion and that interest to be resilient where that is concerned. Most certainly, they trigger a lot of business activity. And there are people who would tell you some of their biggest months is when there's a festival or a carnival.
When my children were going to school, the interest was, are you going to be a doctor, a lawyer? Those traditional,
Yes. Yes, that's still there. I wouldn't want to paint this in terms of young people and their choices. The reality is that if someone is investing in your education, you might have to listen to where they're directing you. And I think there are ways in which we have a responsibility as arts educators, and I have some thoughts on that. It's the how we bridge that, because one of the things in the region that we need, which is quite underdeveloped, is arts therapy. And therapy will need the doctors. We don't have very many entertainment lawyers still. We don't have enough. So there is love. And we do need the architects as well, because we still have a challenge with spaces. I feel that we're at a place as well that we should be looking to bridge and build the gaps. Use what we have. Don't turn anyone away from doing what they want to do, but see how we can connect them. So it's like a win-win almost.
what advice do you have for Caribbean creatives who want to succeed in business?
Oh, you got a dream. I always tell my students, I've made up this word, ideation. I've made those active words because you got a dream. If you don't believe in this thing that you want to do, it may not become a reality. And then in dreaming, not just dream about how it will be aesthetically, because of course that's where your strength is, but also dream about it system wise, structurally, which is where the business side comes in. You don't have to have all the answers, but at least have something on the table that you can take somewhere. You can come into the ACM program with me. That's a nice plug. You may have a mentor who's already good at this or someone who you respect. You got to dream. That's the first step. Dreaming is important so you're not deterred from going after this thing that you want to do.
And when you talk about ideation, explain that.
It's a process, but it happens naturally. There's a little situation that happened in Barbados where promoter talked about 40 by 40 stage. One of my colleagues, a creative out of Grenada, said somebody should be making a song right now on 40 by 40. Ideation is a natural process. It starts off quite naturally, quite organically. But then, obviously, if you're going to do a song on 40 by 40, you're going to have to write some lyrics. You might need to think of a bit of a melody. So that's what I mean. It's really thinking through. It might even include dreaming. There are some people who do that. They go to rest. It's a form of meditation where they can sometimes think about this thing they want to work on and they get up and they flesh it out, whether it's painting, drawing, vocalizing it. I'm a diagram person, but that's what ideation is. And that's important too in an environment where copyrights across the board, it's not a strong framework. So that you would have that as your blueprint. Let's say you suppose someone wanted to take, you could carry them to court because you could show documented this in this particular way.
Yeah.
So that's what ideation is for me. It's a process, but it's a purpose.
So, what would you
Yes.
like our listeners and viewers to remember?
One should pursue one's passion, especially if you are in the cultural and creative industries ecosystem. And don't forget to dream. Always remember that perhaps is one of your best assets. No one can take that from you, just as they can't take your talent or your competence from you. Thank you for having me.
All the best.